Welcome to Positive Talk Radio. Our goal is simple: to explore evolving ideas one conversation at a time. So, stay with us as right now we present. We got a fun show for you today, and I'm really looking forward to talking to the man of the hour, the cast of 1,000 people, and this is Tim Peirson. Peirson, is that correct?
Peirson, yeah.
Perfect. And Mitch Parfit is with us, and I drug Mitch into this because he's a bit of an actor himself and has done some theater and some things, and so I thought he would really appreciate talking to somebody who does what you do, Tim, and tell our audience what exactly it is that you do.
That I do.
With your do. No, forget that.
Kevin's favorite thing to say.
It is.
I could best be described as a special makeup effects and character artist for film and television and video, things like that. So I do, I do everything from beauty to like creatures, Lord of the Rings, zombies, that kind of stuff. Oddly, the only thing I don't do in the makeup world is hair.
Why is that?
There's just so much of it. I don't know what to do with it,
Yeah.
I'm great with faces.
I mean, I had a feeling by looking at you that you.
Well, ironically, up until about 6 years ago, my hair was almost down to my elbows.
Oh.
And I wore it like that for decades. And over the years, my wife had said, I think you should try shaving your head and see if you like it. You've done all these different hairstyles over the years. And I was, for me, my hair was my Linus blanket. Kind of get that? It was my security.
Your Samson, your power.
It was my Samson, man. And I went ahead and I shaved it off, and I went, I love this. I absolutely love this. So
it looks good on you. Some people can't pull it off as well as others.
And I knew that. I thought, well, I went down to a buzz cut first.
Trial run.
Don't have the shape to support it. And the irony of that is when I shaved it, I had so many people telling me that I looked younger.
Yeah.
I don't quite get, because my hair, when it's grown out, doesn't have hardly any gray in it. All my gray is right here. So it was just kind of a, dark blondish brown. But somehow the bald made me look younger. So
it's amazing that you would say when you grow it out, that is a dream of mine, to be able to grow out my hair.
Yeah.
It no longer is there. So
yeah. Well, this is shaved at least every other day. So my hair grows.
Wow. That's it. Do you ever cut yourself?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You don't realize you've done it until afterwards, and you go, "Wait a second, what? Am I bleeding up there?" What the hell happened?
Well,
Kevin's just waiting for his to fall out, so he's not shaving it. He's just waiting until it's all gone.
Yeah.
As is happening over time. And the sad thing is, I've got a 35-year-old and a 31-year-old, and they're both losing their hair as well. So it's a genetic thing, I'm afraid. Yes, indeed.
I always heard that they get the hair genetics from the mother's side of the family. Is that not right?
Well, I'd like to blame it on her.
Yeah.
I'm not sure she's going to accept that, but that's okay. That's okay. So you were just showing us one of the masks that you make.
Yeah. So this is it's always weird doing this backwards in the camera. So I like to make these what I call wall mounts. So they're just foam filled in the back, and these are. I found this reference picture on the internet, and I do not remember the name of the artist. I tweaked it a bit. I changed the design to kind of make it my own, but I always like to springboard off of something. And I've been doing this for over 40 years, and there's generally not a time where I'm not looking at some kind of reference to then create, something that I'd like to do. So I've got stuff up in here, but somehow it just doesn't come out the way that I've got it in here. And so I like visual reference.
Well, and you've done everything, Mitch, you'd appreciate this. He's done everything from, using making these models and stuff to doing body painting of people.
Yeah.
I've been body painting now for, I don't know, 12 years, 12, 13 years. Something like
And
that.
and he was saying that there is protocol involved with body painting for those of you that may be thinking something else. And
Yeah.
it is done very professionally.
Yeah, well, very. In fact, my kind of byline for body painting is it's classy, not trashy. And whenever I paint, the model has to bring a friend. So there's always several people in the room. It's not just one-on-one with the model. And I think that just sets a better atmosphere for everybody. My goal obviously is to do the best type of paint look that I can do, but my primary goal and my foundational thing is the comfort of the model. Does she feel comfortable? Does she feel safe? She could feel free to ask me any questions. If I'm Sometimes I get kind of really focused on what I'm doing. And if perhaps, I place a hand to do something, I always say anything that doesn't feel right, let me know, because I get lost in the paint, you know. And sometimes I'll just, I need to place the hand here. Often what I'll tell them is I'll say, when I'm doing fine detail work, it's very hard for me to do detail work with a brush and not have some kind of foundation for my hand to rest on. I don't know if you've seen old pictures of sign painters or guys that used to do the lettering on people's doors. They had a stick with a soft ball at the end, and they would put that up on the window, and they'd rest their hand against it when they do these fine lines. And so what I do, and I ask permission for this every time, is I'll use my little pinky, and I'll just put my little pinky on them just so I can have that. So I'm not, all
Like a pivot pointer.
right, especially with fine line stuff.
Now, have you ever done men?
I have. Men are harder to do.
I can only imagine why. No pun intended.
Oh yeah, they wear. The models also wear modesty covers, nipple covers, and crotch covers. Guys are harder unless they're clean shaved. A body paint just looks crap over hair.
Well, see, Mitch, I was thinking for Halloween that you could body paint yourself,
Body paint myself.
or have
I don't think that would turn out too good.
Yeah.
It'd be hard to do the backside, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I'd be missing some spots for sure.
I'm gonna grab something off camera real quick here. And I'm back. I don't know if this will really show up well, but this is an example. Whoops. Of one of my body paints.
Oh wow.
Oh wow.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able. You would, if somebody didn't tell you that it was body paint, you'd think it was real clothes.
That was about probably 3.5 hours worth of painting.
Can you make somebody skinnier?
With the right lighting. I've seen other amazing body painters who will take someone that's a little not comfortable with how their body looks, and then they will paint an outfit on them. And then on the sides or the extra parts that they don't want shown, they paint it in black, and then they'll photograph them in front of a black background. And so it takes away. It's like live Photoshop. You just trick the eye into making somebody look a little thinner. So.
Well, I'm all up for that. Although I don't think you paint old men. I'm pretty sure.
No, I haven't. I'm just the old man painting people.
Kevin, you're asking a lot of questions that are going in a direction right now.
I know it's
Kevin wants to be your.
I want to be your old
Titanic
man model.
He wants you to paint him like one of your French women.
That's right.
And we got a couple of comments that Mitch, would you like to read this one?
That's not Dick Smith. Laughing out loud, that's Tim.
Did somebody say Dick Smith?
I'm scared to know who Dick Smith is.
Dick Smith was an Academy Award-winning makeup artist, had a 50-year career in the industry. He was considered the godfather of modern makeup effects, and he was my teacher.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
I learned all from him. After his 50-year career, he retired and wanted to teach, wanted to share his knowledge. And it came from his being in the industry way back in the day, and the makeup artists that were around during the times, anything that they did that seemed like, ooh, this is new and different, and how did they do that? They would take those secrets to the grave with them. They would not share those with anybody. And Dick was one of those guys that was trying to get into the business and learn, and nobody would apprentice him or anything. And so it put him in a mindset of, you know what? If anyone ever asks me a question about how I did something, I will tell them. And before he did this course, that came out in 1985, if somebody would write him questioning, hey, how did such and such happen? He would write them a 3 or 4 page letter and formulas and things. This is exactly how I did it. Because his idea was, if we don't share things we come up with within the industry, then the industry never grows, right? So yeah, he retired in 1985. He was only going to take 100 students between the USA and Europe, and somehow I was in the first 100 students back in '85.
Congratulations. That's pretty
Well,
cool.
thank you. One of the best. Well, thank you, Catherine. One of the best things I did was that training, and it was just through the mail, you know. And back in '85, we didn't have what we have now, video chats and whatnot. So he was literally writing a 24 chapter book. And the very first thing I got in the mail was the first chapter. And then every couple of weeks, he would send a new chapter as it was written. So by the time our course was done, we had this book of, Dick Smith's brain and everything he knew. And then we would do work based on what we've learned, and we'd send him big 8x10s, actual 8x10s in the mail. And then he would critique and he would write back and say, this looks great. You need to work on this. He was very kind, but he was very straightforward. And then he gave us all his phone number. He goes, if you got a question that we're just not communicating well over through the mail, give me a call. So I did. I had several conversations with him over the years, and he was always gracious, and most often he would answer the question that I had, but then he would go off on these stories of the industry and the people that he'd worked with, and so it was really cool. We had great conversations. There was only one phone call, which I regret, because I was on the West Coast. He's on the East Coast. I didn't know about times. So one of those phone calls was during his dinner. And he was a little short with me on that one. And I said, I apologize. I don't, I'm all screwed up with time changes and whatnot. So that was a short conversation. Other than that, he was great. He was extremely gracious and an amazing teacher. So he did it this way. With through the mail thing, he said, I could have a class and have people come and take my course. He said, but then I feel like all I'd have is a little bunch of Dick Smith carbon copies running around, because it would be so hands-on. Is how you do it. He said, I'm giving you the knowledge. Now you create your own style and whatnot using what I have taught you. So that was how he did it. He died years back. I think he was about 94 when he died. And now there's a gentleman by the name of Andrew Clement, who was one of the original 100 students, who, discussing with Dick before Dick passed, he passed the course down to Andrew. So Andrew runs the course now.
Speaking of which, great minds think alike. Amber's got a question for you.
Okay. Am I going to teach classes? I did teach for 4 years up in Seattle. Excuse me. I do workshops here at my studio in Tacoma. Um, every now and then, as I get enough people that want to learn a particular something that I do. But there was a school in Seattle. It was called Tint, and it was the School of Makeup and Cosmetology. And they had a 6 month master makeup artist program, and one of the months out of the 6 was all on special makeup effects. And so I became their teacher and did that for 4 years, until the school closed down shortly after COVID. Excuse me. We did a year during the shutdown, teaching Zoom classes. I taught right here from my studio, and it was very it was very interesting. I felt bad for the students because we can see everybody's on screen, and we combined our Seattle and Texas students, and then me and 2 of the other Texas teachers would take turns doing demos or whatnot, and then the other person would field questions as we were doing our demos. But you can see the faces of these students, and half of them just looked like, I can't see anything. Zoom is bad. They weren't saying those things, but you could just see it. You could just see it, and I just felt so bad. So I did have an opportunity to meet the Seattle students when we came back, and they were in another module, probably beauty or bridal or something. But I did have a chance to touch base with them. Anyway, I do classes here, but it's not a regular thing. It's I gotta have at least 4 or 5 people that are interested in learning something, and then I bring them in, and we do a day or two learning how to do small prosthetics or cuts, bruises, things like that. So
If somebody wants to come and learn from you,
yeah.
how do they get a hold of you?
They can get a hold of me through my I'll call it my website. It's Instagram, and it's just castofthousandsstudios.com. And they could message me on Instagram. That's really where I get a lot of connections and work that I do. I did have an actual website years ago and didn't realize until a year and a half of having it up that it wasn't uh, mobile friendly. Mobile, and so it took
Right.
forever to load up. And the guys that were doing the site for me said, if you switch to this other thing, it's a faster load up and whatnot. And frankly, I never got around to it. I just started the Instagram thing, and that's done well for me. I do want to put up an actual website though. That would be fantastic.
Well, if you ever get around to that, I've got people. I know people that can do
All
that
right,
for
people. I like people who know people.
you. Yeah, I can't do a dang thing, but I got people who
The-
can, including one of the ones that you're looking at right there, Mister Mitch, right there. So he
Yeah, a little bit.
a little bit. Well, he was born of an age when computers were around when he was young.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I was
yeah.
born in 1960. That tells you how old I am. We were excited when Pong came out on the computers. Remember Pong? That was look, Pong, you can make it. Oh, yeah. And so
Yep.
here we are now with virtual reality and all that stuff. It's pretty crazy.
It's definitely on another level right now.
That's right.
I
Pong.
don't play a lot of video games, but I like the old school ones. Like I have my Sega Genesis that I got when I was 4,
Oh,
and
wow.
I
Yeah.
just got new video and power cords and stuff for it, and I have about 30 different Sega games, the old cartridges and stuff.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I like playing the
That's
old 16-bit. I mean, it's not quite as far back as like Atari and Pong and some of those other games, but I still like playing those. I go to sometimes. Have you ever gone to the Castle Arcade? Have you heard of that?
I have not.
They have 2 or 3 of them. I don't know how far south they go, but it's like a 18 or over or 21 and over arcade. And so they serve beer and like wine and seltzers and stuff like that. No hard A, and you can bring your own food there. You can even order food and have it brought there. But yeah, it's old pinball machines. A lot of the old school games. They have some new, but it's
Yeah.
very, very retro, and it's a place you can go and have a beer and play some of those old games. Pretty
Yeah.
cool. So if you ever see one, check it out.
Something we have here. I don't know if they do the alcohol thing, but it's called Dorkies. Have you heard of Dorkies?
I
It's
feel like
right
down in Tacoma.
And it's all those old, Pac-Man and pinball and all that. Yeah.
I've got a console, a full-blown console that has 3,000 games in it. So
So, yeah,
I win.
there you do win.
That's cheating.
Yeah.
It's just not the same.
It's got, well, I see. I grew up in a time when, do you remember Asteroids?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Galaga
Asteroids
was my
was
favorite.
absolutely brand new, and there would be a whole row of them in the tavern that I would go to, and it was like one of the first, full console video games and stuff, and so we would go there and play Asteroids. And now that's in my house, so you'll have to come down, Mitch, and we'll play Asteroids or Defender,
Yeah.
or one of the 3,000 other games.
Yeah. But back just maybe my senior year of high school, maybe the year after, had a buddy of mine that was a manager of an arcade in the local mall, and we go in on the weekends after the place would close, and we go in there. We'd be in there till 2 or 3 in the morning, and he just opened the machines and click up.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, you got like 25 credits. And then we could play games for hours without having to shove our quarters into it. It was pretty cool.
That is cool. I have a couple questions, Tim.
So Tim, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say. So, I mean, I have so many, but so what? First question. So on one of the, I know it's probably going to be pretty different based on the project itself. But what is one of these masks? What kind of time does that take for you to do? So if somebody's like, "Hey, I want you to make this mask for me," and you guys agree on, okay, we're going to do it. What is a project like this? How long does it take you?
It varies obviously with the project. Well,
like maybe the one you showed us, like that as an example.
The one that I showed you, that was just something I wanted to do to hang up in my studio. I've got, when you first walk into my studio, there's a wall of characters like this, and I call it my wall of weird. And I thought, what a great place to greet. Anyway, that took me probably, I'm terrible at tracking hours, but the actual sculpture of it probably took me 8 hours. And I do it in a water-based clay called WED, which was developed by Disney Studios. WED stands for Walter Elias Disney. And they developed it back when they were doing the sculptures for Pirates of the Caribbean, stuff like that. And it's a regular water-based clay, but it has a glycerin base to it. So you can't put it in a kiln or it would blow up. It was made specifically to sculpt something and then make a mold of that. So that's what I do with these. I sculpt these in that clay, and then I do a plaster mold over the top. And then I clean all the clay out, and I put latex in there, let it skin up pretty good, pull it out, put the foam in and paint it up. So maybe start to finish for that character, I probably spent, and I don't count the drying time of things, I'm going to say I probably got 20 hours into it.
I mean, that's a long time, but I mean, that's not bad for how detailed and amazing it looks. I mean, I was gonna guess 30 plus hours, but
yeah, I used to take that long. I've got this guy back here. He's a whole head.
Yeah, so a little bit longer.
Passion project.
Is that something somebody could wear as a whole head?
This is actually a foam filled as a display. I have one. You can get a really good look at him here.
Oh, he's pretty.
Oh
wow. This was taken off of designs from a makeup artist by the name of Joel Harlow, who's fantastic. He's in the industry. He does a lot of silicone work. When they rebooted the Hellboy movie.
Mhm.
He was the makeup artist on that, and there was a scene with all these giants that Hellboy is now battling. In a book of the behind the scenes, there's all these sketches of giants and things that never made it to screen. And so this guy is a conglomeration of about 4 different heads that I went, ooh, I like this on this one, and ooh, I like this over here, and then some things that I added as well. Again, I like to use reference when I'm looking at it. The plaster I was using when I cast this it was a bad plaster, and so I only got two poles out of the mold, and the mold was destroyed. So I've got my display head, and I've got one that I can paint up and actually do as an over the head mask.
Now, do you when you are doing these masks, how do you figure out size when you make them for somebody? Do you take like is it one of those things where you measure somebody's head, or do you make it just kind of a one, size specifically that not like a one size fits all, but do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, they're kind of a one size fits all. I have
Yeah.
head and shoulder forms that that I'll do. This one was just I knew the basic size it needed to be to fit over someone's head. If I'm doing a mask specifically for someone, it doesn't. I don't have to have a cast of their face. If I'm doing very specific prosthetics for them, then I would bring them in the studio and take a life cast and then get a plaster head of them and then do all my sculpture and whatnot on it. But these are very generic. So I've got a generic head and shoulders thing that I will then sculpt over. And then when we sculpt, and that's the same with any latex mask. The big things now that are huge in the industry are silicone masks, which are sculpted to be slightly smaller. So when you put it on someone's head, it really grabs, to their features. Um, I don't do any of that. The silicone works a little harder to do. I do silicone appliances, but I don't do these big pullover things. But when we're doing latex heads, um, we have to sculpt the head larger than normal because latex shrinks as it dries. So when we put it in the mold and as it dries, it's going to shrink a little bit. And so we have to make it slightly larger. So when it does shrink, it'll still fit over somebody's head. I see that question, Amber. I don't. Um, I do not do local haunted houses. That's quick work, and I'm not a quick guy. I like to take my time and make sure everything looks right. And I have many friends who are makeup artists that work in the haunt industry, um, and a lot of it ends up being a lot of airbrushing. And I'm not a quick airbrusher. When I'm at home in the studio and I'm working on a particular head or something, I I uh, go between an airbrush and just traditional brushes or even sponges. When I'm painting, I like to take my time with it. The haunt industry is quick. You got to get untold number of performers ready for the haunt, and so it's usually just a lot of basic makeups and things. They don't do a lot of full prosthetics for anything. If anything, they'll do an over the head thing. Like I've got this zombie back here, which is an over the head thing that I made last year.
I was going to ask you if you did zombies.
Oh yeah, yeah. The funny thing is I can do them, and I've done a lot of them. I would prefer to be on Lord of the Rings or something and do uh, fantasy creatures and characters. That's really my wheelhouse. But years ago, I moved up to Spokane for about 5 months and worked on the show Z Nation, which is a zombie show. And I was hired for season 5 to be the shop tech and on-set makeup artist. So they only brought me on set when we had zombie days where we had like, hey, we've got 38 background zombies. So the whole crew would come in, and our whole crew was just 6 people. We'd come in and we'd have 30 minutes per zombie to airbrush the background guys and get them all ready. But usually during the day, and my day was a 12.5 hour day, I was in the shop and I would create a good deal of what ended up on screen that season, the makeups. I do the sculpting and mold making and all that. So we had another 1 or 2 guys that worked in the shop with me, but mostly they were on set. So there was a lot of just long days with just me sitting in there listening to audiobooks and doing zombies. I'd come in. I loved it. I'd come in and we had a whiteboard. It was the job board. I'd come in on a Monday and it would say, we need such and such on these days. Thursday, we need 3 full-size burnt bodies. All right. So I knew what I was doing, for the next couple of days. So.
Did you ever go home and say, yeah, got to do some burnt bodies today?
Well, I told my wife all the stuff that I did. She was like, oh, that's interesting. The part that would make me nervous is when I'd have to deliver these to set. And I thought, I hope I don't ever get pulled over for anything, because if they open the back of my van, there's going to be all these body parts and, Chris bodies and skeletal things, I thought, I'm going to be in trouble.
I would just go with it at that point. You get pulled over. There's a zombie apocalypse. Just, just gun it. Hopefully they see the dead zombies in the back and they believe you.
Well, the funny thing is on my van, I've got a sticker that says Zombie Apocalypse Response Team.
Speaking of your wife, I have to say, this one you did of her on her, I don't know what one you call this. It looks like it's from about 34 weeks back, but it's the play-by-play where she's got the beanie or the hat on. Yeah. Is, oh my goodness, that's crazy.
And she knows I love doing that stuff, and I don't get a lot of people coming in to have full prosthetics done. But she said, yeah, you want to just do some makeup on me today? And I said, sure. And so I love showing that to people, because they say, would you like to see a picture of my wife I just did makeup on? And they're
that's what caught my eye. It says, when your wife lets you do her makeup, and I'm like, wait a second. I'm looking at this, I'm like, holy cow. Is that based, like, I know you said I do a lot of the same stuff when I do get artsy and I take little bits and pieces. Is this character based on anything from a show that I'm not remembering, or is it you just did this?
Yeah, these different pieces. There's a company, so I make my own prosthetics. I can do that. It's just not as fun, and it's a longer process. So there's a company that I have purchased from over the last 5 or 6 years down in LA called I.A.T.S.E, and I buy a little something from them every month, every other month, something like that. And over the years, I've got quite a stockpile. And so we just had these generic pieces, kind of the rim of the face, and we had the nose, and hey, let's try this nose. That looks good. And as we're doing it, she goes, hey, why don't you put a mustache on me? And so I did the mustache. And so it was just a fun thing for I.A.T.S.E stuff. I got one of their pieces here. This is one of their lion pieces. It's they work with the top sculptors, some of the top sculptors in the industry. You would glue that on someone and then do all the paint and hair work to make it look really cool.
Are those when you do that, is that are you able to wash all that makeup and stuff off then, so you can create and paint it different ways? Or is it once you paint it and put that stuff on it, it's kind of just, you should leave it?
Painting wise, you can paint over something you've done, especially if you haven't done any hair work over the piece.
Yeah.
But all these prosthetics are what we call one and dones.
One and dones, okay.
And so if we were doing a film and we had a character, like that, almost like, the old show Beauty and the Beast with Ron Perlman. I
love that show.
It was a great show. New piece on him every single day that they shot. And what they do kind of as a standard is if they have a primary character like that has prosthetics, they will have 2 or 3 extra pieces per day. So think 2 to 3 pieces made every single day for the run of the shoot. Because if something happens and they need to repair it or take it off, they have an extra set right there that they can put on and start the process again. And those makeups, they can last, depending on the intricacy of the character, they can last anywhere from 3 to 10 hours to put something on. And so, you think of those poor actors that hey, we got to be on set at 7 a.m., which means the makeup artists are there, at 2 a.m. in the morning trying to get them all ready to go. I worked on a show just a little bit called The Birch, and that's on Facebook Watch. They've done, I think, 2 seasons, but I worked for a week on season 1, and I was one of the makeup artists that got this Birch character into makeup. All the pieces makeup pieces and stuff were shipped up from LA, and then me and the other makeup artist Claire, who was the on-set lead, we would get this guy into his makeup. Well, he was fully, from the waist up, fully covered. Contact lenses, dental appliances, he was in it. And he'd be in that thing for 14 hours, 12 to 14 hours. And then we had an hour or so at the end of the shoot to each day to get him out of that. So the suit performers and things like that, they're good. I mean, they go through a lot.
Yeah. Well, I see here too. It looks like you don't, I see this Gears of War influence thing. So that's even past doing a mask. You did like a full chest.
I do what's called foam smithing. I've only been doing that for a handful of years now. And in fact, you bring that up, I've got it sitting right here.
Oh, perfect. Because I'm looking at it. Yeah. That's cool.
So this is the chest armor. So it's complex.
Yeah.
And it also lights up here. I learned how to solder to be able to do that. There's a guy named Steve, and he runs SKS Props. And he is a master builder, and he put out patterns for Gears of War. I'm waiting for the complete stuff because he has a belt and a kind of a cod piece thing and shin guards and wrist things that still have yet to come out. But he has a YouTube channel, SKS Props, and he does step-by-step, here's how you build it, and he offers his patterns on his site for free. But he also has a Patreon, so people want to give money towards the patterns, and which I certainly do. Everything that I download from him, I put money in because he's doing all the work to make those patterns and whatnot. That took me, for him, it was about 6 videos to show you how to do it. It probably took me about 3 weeks or so to put that together. And I just finished it the other day. Whenever those pictures came up, where it was the last thing that I had finished that piece, and that's just the main part of it. I still have other stuff to do, but you can do other stuff with foam smithing as well. I make these orc helmets.
Yeah, those are cool.
And it's just this one. The base of it was just the kind of foam you buy at Harbor Freight Tools. You slap down on your garage floor so you don't get fatigued while you're standing.
Yeah.
But Steve also puts out his SKS foam, which is the bulk of what I did the Gears of War with. But you can do anything: helmets, armor, weapons. It's amazing.
I've been adding all these people since we've been talking.
Yeah,
all their Instagrams, because there's so much stuff on them, and even yours. It's never ending, and they're all so
I'm all
cool.
over the map on mine. Yeah. I mean, why just do one thing, right? Um, but yeah, SKS Prop. The other one is the Evil Ted channel. I don't know what his Instagram is, but he's also a maker. Um, uh, has been doing it for years. Also does videos on how to build things. And there's plenty of guys out there that do this, and some amazing female artists that are just doing some mind bending builds themselves. So it's
Yeah.
huge. I'm newer to it, so I don't know actually how many years it's been around. But I think that particular uh, niche of the industry is just growing and expanding.
Yeah. It seems pretty interesting. I love this too. This one you have that your first demo that you did for Crypticon. I don't know, it's like a zombie face.
Okay, yeah,
Old person. Yeah, the
Con tends to I tend to do a lot of zombie type demo
yeah.
for them.
It looks like a female maybe wearing this too. So it's just like, oh, it's so cool.
Oh, if you the long dark hair.
I think well with the yellow flannel.
Oh, okay, that was just this last year. Yeah, that's my
Yeah,
friend.
2023 it said.
Emma is quite the cosplayer herself, and when I asked her to do this demo with me, and I said, "Oh, I'm going to do a zombie on you," she was like, "Yeah," you know. Um, yeah, I've been doing Crypticon for probably about 9 years or so.
Cool.
Doing a demo artist. I'm now part of staff, so I do demos every year. I do panels. Um, yeah, it's fun. Uh, one of the zombie gals that I did um, that year, David Noddington was there. American Werewolf in London.
Oh, one of my favorite movies.
I love that movie.
What a gracious guy. We talked. Uh, there because I'm staff, I can go around the celebrity tables before they open up to the main public, and I had a good chance to talk to him. But I actually talked to him throughout the whole weekend, and I brought her over to show him after I was done with the demo. It was so funny. He goes, "Would you mind if I get a selfie with her?" I said, "No, not at all." So he's got a selfie with her, and that was pretty fun.
That's cool. Well, I have a couple more questions here. So, one, what's this one just curious. What's the longest time that you've ever spent on one single mask? Full on.
Oh, that's a pretty good question. Um, Probably just the sculpting part. I don't like I say I get lost. My
Yeah. Get in the zone and you start going, you're like, I'm not keeping track of time.
Here's what my wife says about me. She says most people occupy space and time. Tim's just occupies space. 25, 30 hours maybe on something. I really don't know.
Yeah.
The last thing that I did, and I here's another Instagram place for you to look at. It's called Rib FX, RIBFX. And my
Okay.
friend Mike Ribigan runs that. And over the past year, I've sculpted a lot of new heads for the characters that he creates. He creates bodies and creatures for haunted houses all over America. But the excuse me, the last one that I just did, which is probably one of the hardest sculpts that I've done yet, is back in the 70s in California. There was a horror TV show host called the Sinister Seymour, and he was the precursor to Elvira. Right, she came out probably in the early 80s, I think.
Yeah.
And the Sinister Seymour, he was this gaunt looking guy, all dressed in black, with a big black hat. He would show, schlocky old black and white horror movies, and then he would do his little shtick, which is kind of, Elvira kind of picked up the mantle after he passed away. But he was huge at Knott's Berry Farm. And every year for September and October, Knott's Berry Farm becomes Knott's Scary Farm. And he would do his thing there at the John Wayne Theater. Well, Mike has connections with Knott's somehow. Anyway, he was hired to do a full Sinister Seymour because Knott's Berry Farm, this week is opening the Not Scary Farm Museum, celebrating 50 years of Scary Farm. In fact, I'm going down tomorrow to California, and we're going to go to Not Scary Farm and see the museum that they put together. And Seymour is in there. He's one of the displays. But what's hard about it is there are no really good pictures of him because it's all from the 70s, and they're all screenshots from like VHS tapes and things. And it was, I pulled as many pictures of his face as I could because I needed detail. And I thought, okay, I've gotten close as I'm going to get with it, with what I have to work with. So he sent it on down to Knott's, and he said the Knott's historian just was head over heels about how it turned out. We have yet to hear comments from his family because they were going to bring some stuff to Knott's from the old show to put as part of the display down there. So that was tough because I didn't have good reference.
Yeah.
I'm from California. I used to go watch him at Knott's. But that was 40, 50 years ago, something like that. I don't know.
Oh, you're not that old. You're younger than me, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah.
So it's great talking to you, Tim. And again, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, how do they do it again? If they want to buy something to stick, like as an example, you've got this head that you can like stick on a table in your living room or in your entryway,
Hang
and
on
it looks real, and it looks like his body is in the cabinet or something. Yeah,
so I also do these little wall hangings, and I do a lot of these types of faces with those. But I've done character faces and monstery faces, and I also do dental appliances.
That's pretty cool. I just had a new dental appliance put in, so I get it. That's pretty cool.
Like these, huh?
Yeah. Indeed,
wow.
indeed. So yeah.
They just go online. They can really one of the best ways to contact me is through Instagram these days, and it's just www.castofthousands.com, castofthousandsstudio.com. I don't even know my own website.
Well, that's because you're too busy doing other stuff, and we're gonna have to wrap it up. But is there any other questions that you have, Mitch, before we go?
No questions, but I did come up with a cool idea that I thought would be sweet. That little head you had. What if you did like Christmas ornaments that were those little faces, sold those, and people could put them on their tree?
Okay, I've done small like that before.
Yeah, it's hard to see how big it is truly, even through the video, but I didn't know. I was like, man, that would be something I'd hang from my tree.
I'll hold it right up next to my face. See, they're little.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They're
a little bigger than I thought they were, but
or a shrunken head that the cannibals did.
The shrunken head, yeah.
I did a thing a ways back where I told people I could, if you want a bust of yourself done, but as a zombie or crazy something, I'll do that. And I did it for a photographer, and it just was great. And I thought, this is it. People are going to just be pounded down my doors. Nothing.
Oh man, I would have.
I'm surprised, Kevin. And I said at the beginning of this thing, I don't know if we'll be able to fill the time with stuff with me, but we're done. That's amazing.
Yes,
that's amazing.
It was a very interesting show. You'll have to come back because Mitch has many more questions for you.
I could go all day.
Also, just get a hold of me anyway.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I've already added you. I'm definitely going to contact you about something. There's plenty here to get a hold of you about.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you having me on. That's fantastic. I joke with my friends that I'm one of the best kept secrets in Western Washington.
You really are. You're extraordinarily talented, and I hope that you get lots and lots of work and as much work as you want to, and so. But
all I do is my full time gig.
Yep, and we've got another show that we're going to do on KKNW in 8 minutes, and that one is going to be about a lady who has written 20 books. One of them has been 300,000 copies. She's won all kinds of awards. And it's about living well and stuff like that. So we're gonna have to go do that, but that's on KKNW, and that'll be also right here on the YouTube channel. So if you want to hang out for that, you can watch that as well. And we'll
Now,
be back
I've
here
got a
in about 7
for
minutes.
you. You guys asking me questions. I have a question for you before we go. Can we find this on YouTube somewhere, or was this just a completely live?
It is completely live, and then it stays on YouTube.
Oh,
So
okay.
so you go to YouTube and hit the live button, and you'll have 2 out of 3 pretty faces. We'll be right there in front of you.
And it's up to the audience to guess which one you are.
That's right.
Which one of us wearing a mask?
That's
Which one of us should be wearing a mask?
We're all we're all
So-
actually a bunch of weird teenagers, you know.
Yeah.
But that's what I love about your work is it's like you never grew up. You're still that
No.
17-year-old kid that's in his basement doing masks and stuff like that. I think is great.
Absolutely. I'm really a kid at heart. I am.
Indeed. If you wait right there, we'll be right back, and then we got to go do something else. But we'll be right back. Hey, thanks for enjoying this episode all the way to the end. Please give us a like and subscribe to this channel. This has been a production of PositiveTalkRadio.net. Please visit our website, oddly named PositiveTalkRadio.net, for more details about us and our mission, which is to provide great positive programming designed to inspire us all. I'm Kevin McDonald, and I'm proud of these shows, and I truly hope that you'll like them and share them with friends and family. So on behalf of our entire team, remember, be kind to one another, because